حضورنا الكريم، سنبدأ الآن ماستر كلاس نتفلكس تطوير الجوانب البصرية من الفكرة إلى التنفيذ.
Great. Okay. So, welcome everyone. There's a clock at the back that tells me how much time I've got. So I was just waiting for the clock to start. So yeah, good morning, welcome. It's really a privilege to be here today. I hope you're all caffeinated after this break. My name's Edmund, and my life before Netflix, I was a colorist. Anyone here know what a colorist does? Yeah? Fixes the colors. Yeah, that's one way to put it. Yeah. So this will be a little bit interactive, this session. So if you're thinking, I'm just going to stay here quietly, I'm very patient. You won't get away with it. Yeah. And I'm just also interested, who is in the audience today? Do we have any filmmakers in the audience? Wow, there's some very excited filmmakers. There's one here as well. Any other filmmakers here at the Arab Media Forum? I thought we would have some filmmakers or visual storytellers. Any other ones? Yeah? Okay, I'm going to need your help. Yeah? Good. So, at Netflix, we all have these very long job titles, and no one's really sure what they mean. My one is a technologist. What is a technologist? It can mean different things. But in the context of Netflix, it's really about kind of a consultant. So if you're going to make a Netflix title, and you need some guidance, or you need some support, or you want to ask about how something was done on another show, then technologists are the people you can get in touch with, and you can ask me, I saw this grain on this show, or I saw this special look, or something, and we're gonna answer those questions. So that's the role of a technologist at Netflix. Yeah, good. So something that we all have in common, I would hope, is the starting point. And the starting point, we all have the same starting points. We start from a story. Here's a story. An orphan girl struggles with addiction in her quest to become the best chess player in the world. Anyone recognize this story? Yeah, a few people. Queen's Gambit, yes, thank you. Yeah. So I chose that show just because I think it's a nice-looking show, and a lot of people have seen it, and we'll use it as an example. So Queen's Gambit once started as a very simple story from a writer, and it started like this. And then, as you know, if you've ever worked in production, that after a lot of time and a lot of thinking, sometimes a lot of money, and also sometimes a lot of pain, the story becomes pictures, or groups of pictures, and sounds, of course. Sounds are also a big aspect. We have a sound masterclass, so if you're interested afterwards, you should ask about the sound masterclass. So after all that work, it becomes like this. And these pictures tell the story, and they trigger emotions, and they create a world. Sometimes people fall in love with those worlds, And so we're going to look a bit about how this is done, and things that you can do to make it a more rewarding experience for the audience. And so where do we start from? Well, we all start from the same place, of course, and that is these empty canvases, which is really your next project. So just imagine your next project, it's going to fill these empty canvases here. So as a colorist, I'm fixing the pictures. I'd like to say it's a bit more like enabling other artists or so on like this, but we're basically manipulating the colors. And every picture, as you know, from advertising and so on, every picture creates emotions in us. And when you do a show, you're talking about a lot of pictures. And to give you an idea, in a 50-minute episode at 24 frames a second, that's 72,000 pictures, that someone's got to take care of, And it was me, I was responsible for them. If there was one picture that was wrong, then it was on me. Over a 2-hour feature film, you're looking at 173,000 pictures, So, and over a series, you're looking at 500,000 pictures, all right? So if someone says, I was thinking we want to change the look. If you want to change the look, you want to change how those pictures appear, it can be a lot of work. And doing this later in the process is very problematic, as you're going to see. So this talk is really about how to use this potential, the potential of these pictures that you have, and in the context of Netflix, of course, they're streamed all over the world, So here's the title of the talk, to inspire more value in the visuals from development to final grade. The talk's in 3 chapters. Images and our emotions. So we're going to look very quickly at how images work. Everyone here is very image literate, it's a fact, because you learn this from when you're a child. But it's very important to just take a moment to understand how that works, because it works on you in a subconscious way that you're maybe not, you're not conscious of this, And it's very important to have that in your mind before we go further. And then what's really unique about motion pictures is that it's a story over time. That's something unique to filmmaking. Only music has the same quality. It's a temporal art form. And then you think, okay, Edmund, that's all very nice, very artistic and stuff. What about some hard ideas? Well, then we get into the meat and potatoes of the talk, which are kind of key moments in the production pipeline where people can take actions that will probably improve, or hopefully will improve, the final outcome in a creative sense. So keeping an eye on the time, we're gonna go straight through it. And we're going to start with this bit, and I'm going to need your ideas, but I want you to know that there's no wrong or right answer. It's just to get people thinking about it, okay? So we're going to build a scene from nothing, right? And I just want you to think about story and emotions, So I'm going to start with something very simple. I'm going to start with this. It's a guy from Netflix showing a white box. Is there any story here or any emotions at all? No? People are like, no? Death? Okay, that's a new one. Beginning of everything. Emptiness? Wow, I'm so excited by all these responses. Sometimes people are just totally silent. It's just like blank paper, So a blank paper, So it's a suggestion that there will be something, I think. There'll be something like this. So it's just this, it's a canvas, It's a blank canvas. If you asked a photographer or a cinematographer about it, he or she, they might say, well, actually, I don't want it like this. I want it like this. What changes when I do that? The frame? Say again? Aspect ratio, yeah, I changed the aspect ratio, but how does the suggestion change? It's a movie or a series, okay. Well, we have many series that are this format, yeah. James Bond, okay. Yeah, they're all wide ones, the James Bond. Yeah, it's generally suggesting a bigger canvas in a way, right? A bigger space. So I'm going to add some elements here. We're going to go back to this space. Add some elements here and ask you, this will be very interesting. What do you feel you see here? This piano, okay. Forest? What's that? Open doors. Okay. That's a new one. Yeah? Very good. So different people see different things. That's the important thing. Okay, I'm going to add a character now. What happens then? The meaning changes. More? Odd. Yeah? Is it a nice place for this character to be? No. Everyone is like, no. This is not a nice place. And it's not nice because of the scale and because of the perspective, right? These lines hang over the character. So let's say we're creating a scene for a show. We've got the character in there. We'll say it's a forest. Okay? And we say to the production designer, can you make it more scary? Yeah? Production designer says, okay, try this. Yeah? It's very simple. It's very simple, right? Now the danger increased for the character. Yeah? I'm going to increase the danger even more. Right? Now we have a concrete story, concrete picture. Yeah? Is this a good place to be if you're the character? No? It's a dark forest. Yeah. Who thinks the wolf sees the triangle? Yeah? Yeah? A lot of you? I'm very innocent. I don't think the wolf sees. I think he's just passing by. He's on his way somewhere else. Yeah? And the wolf is scary because of the shape. Yeah? It's very sharp. It's a very sharp shape. And he's very big. He's in the foreground. All right, but what about the colors? Yeah? You're going to see it's all going to make sense. I'm going to show you some colors, and all you have to do is feel the colors. Yeah? Very simple. Boom. What's the feeling you get from this color? Summer? Warmness? Yeah. Any other ones? What? School bus. Okay, that's a new one. Would you say it's more positive or negative? Positive. Someone said negative. There's always one. In general, you kind of agree it's a positive color, right? Okay. I give you another one. It's very simple. What about this one? Calm. Ice cold. Yeah. Television. Yeah. Is it more positive or negative? Okay, it's kind of, yeah, in a bit of both. Calm, yeah, calm, cold, peaceful, people say, yeah. And the last one, of course, this one. Yeah, okay, it's not about Netflix. Danger, urgency, anger. Say it again. I don't get it. Signs on the road, danger, yeah. Okay, it's a very strong reaction there. Do you notice that you kind of all react the same way? And that's something that's common all around the world, yeah? That's one of the magics of color, is that people do have like cultural adaptations to color, like in Japan, for example. But in general, our responses to color is very pure, yeah? You can see this here. If I show you this, this is all from a famous book. If I say, like, how would you separate these objects? Not a trick question. By shape, okay? And now? By shape and color, yeah, okay, very clever. By color, usually, right? And that's the thing about the color. The color overpowers everything. The color goes straight through you so fast, you can't even intellectually control it, yeah? It goes straight through you. You know this from life, because brands exploit the power of color. Here you can see some. I made sure Netflix is in the middle there, the red ones. And they create different associations in you. If you look at these. The blue, which you said was calm, is associated generally with technology companies or banks. It's trustworthy, secure, and so on. And the red is this more bold and exciting thing. If we go back to our scene, the color is also affected by the context, right? So I'm going to add the color now. We're going to use a costume designer to do this. So the costume designer says, okay, I can make it more frightening for the triangle if I dress the triangle in red. Yeah? So the triangle is more exposed now. Yeah? It's more vulnerable. Yeah, the triangle is really exposed. And what if we want to get rid of, we don't want any doubt that the wolf sees the triangle. We could ask the VFX person, what could you do? VFX person says, we could make the eyes of the wolf red. So now there's no doubt that the wolf sees the triangle. Yeah? There is this connection between the colors. Okay, great. We're going to go one step further. This is something I noticed in United Arab Emirates. There's very good attention to detail with textures. This is about textures and the stories textures tell. If you look at the texture, actually what happens in your brain is you feel it with your mind. Yeah? That's how you read pictures. You actually feel them. What do you feel from this texture? What do you associate it with it? It's so much I can't follow you all. What's that? Cold. Old. Okay, got it. Yeah, old. It's an old texture. Yeah. So this character is wearing an old texture. Yeah? And this begins to tell you a story. I'm going to change the background now. Yeah. So I just add this background. What kind of world is this for the triangle? I just don't hear so well. Yeah. Yeah. Is it a nice place to be? No. Yeah? It's kind of rough and threatening. Yeah? So just from these elements in your brain, you are building a world. Yeah? And what happens is it's layers upon layers and layers. Yeah? And you create, in the end, a visual impression that the audience receives. The more layers there are, the more rewarding it is. Yeah? You know this from movies, like Ridley Scott movies and so on. He's very famous for this. The more layers you have, the more meaning the audience takes from it. Yeah? Okay, so why does Edmund show you all this graphics and triangles and all of this stuff? Well, the answer is very simple. The answer is that there's no difference between this and motion pictures. So when you read a motion picture like this, you get the same effect. It's exactly the same. Yeah? This is a scene from Schindler's List. I just chose this one because it is quite well known, and it is this use of color, which is very similar to the forest scenario, which is kind of a Little Red Riding Hood scenario. And this picture is a product of these people working on the movie. If I remove the color, like this, it's a different picture. Yeah? And it's a different emotion. Yeah? Here's another example. This is a bit closer to home. This is from the Netflix show The Crown. So I've taken out the color, and I'm going to add the color and just feel the emotion. Just feel it. Yeah? I take it away. Okay. So this dress and this art direction is a conscious choice. You actually see the same elements that are in the forest scene. You see a small character surrounded by tall, vertical structures that traps them. Yeah, like with the tree, she's trapped. It's not a nice place for this princess to be. Another example here from a South African show, Unseen. What kind of place is the character going to? When I add the color, it tells you the place that she's going to. So every element in the picture is an opportunity for expression. That's really the point. And every department that controls those elements, they have the opportunity to contribute and to contribute ideas based on the story. So in this case, both these images are the work of these people working together. Often, the DOP is kind of like, or the cinematographer is considered like the main author of the picture, but it's actually really a combination of the production designer, costume, and in the end it's the colorist who can control, how red the red is, for example. Good. So just wanted you to make you aware of all of this. And then we get into this thing, which is very unique to our world of motion pictures, which is what you can do with pictures over time, because you can do very unique things that you can't do anywhere else. You can do them in music, maybe. So we're going to have a look at some of these examples. Does anyone recognize this movie? Yeah? Amélie, yeah? This has a very famous look. It's a very characteristic look connected to the world of the character. What kind of world is she living in? Say again? Mexico. Well, no, she's in Paris, actually. Yeah? If you've seen Amélie, then maybe you can say what kind of world she lives in. No? No? Is this a very realistic world? Does your life look like this? No. It's more of a fantasy world, right? Stylized. Are there any colors missing here? Blue. Yeah? There's no blue. There's a tiny bit of blue up here. Yeah? Because when I showed you yellow, you were like, oh, sunshine, positive, it's great. So in her world, it's only sunshine. There's the sad color is gone. Yeah? Do you think they did this in post-production? It was all done in, color grading? It was from the beginning, right? This is a product of design. Whoops, wrong way. Yeah. It's a product of design and people thinking about it before shooting it. Yeah. And here they build this world. Here's another example. It's very small for you, but it doesn't matter. This is from Squid Games. In Squid Game, he starts off in a normal world. Yeah, the normal world. And within the end of the first episode, he moves into a different world when he plays the game. Yeah. And you'll see always the same kind of colors triggering the same emotions. Sometimes in shows, characters move through different worlds. It's not just one world like Amélie. Here's a famous example where you have multiple worlds from 2001. Here again, you have the cold blue of the technology. Yeah? and you have the warm red or the sinister red of the AI. Yeah? And at the end, they just go wild with the colors. Yeah? And one more example, maybe. Who recognizes this movie? Seven. Yeah? Seven has a very famous look. How would you describe the look? Dark. What's it? Mystery. Yeah? Definitely. Is this a nice place to be, like Amelie? No. No, it's not nice at all. Yeah? It's very... Is it day or night? It's kind of in between, I would say. It's kind of in between day or night. Something you can do with time is very much like music. So I can't read music, so this is kind of fake. But the idea is, what you can do is you can in music you can play a motif. Yeah, you put in a motif, and then later on, when you repeat the motif, the audience will remember it, and they'll feel the emotion even stronger. There's an example of this in many stories, but I use one here in Seven. So if you've seen Seven, maybe you might remember, but at the top, they go into a room where there's the worst murder ever, you know. It's an American movie. It's just the most horrendous murder you can imagine. Yeah, it's terrible. And there's this cold red there. Do you see this red again? You sure? Yeah. He's wearing it. Yeah. So when the audience sees the work of the killer, they have in their minds this dark, cold red. Later, when Kevin Spacey appears, they see it again. Yeah? And if you've seen the movie, you know the moment when he appears is quite famous. You're pretty sure this is the guy who did these murders. And the color reinforces this and reinforces your anxiety about him. And this is all created. So, what message does a look create? When you change the channels on your TV, you kind of know what you're watching immediately. You know whether it's like a soap opera or whether it's a Hollywood movie or it's a Western. You do this in a microsecond, and there's kind of a scale or a spectrum from one end where it looks very realistic. It's a bit like if you just take a picture with your phone and you don't do anything. It's just like a window of the world. This is usually a kind of unfiltered, true-to-life world. And we kind of like this for nature shows, like Our Planet, and for example, like this. It's how we perceive it as natural. On the other end, you have this more stylized world. And this is a bit when you've put like a filter on the picture, or you've made the picture black and white, or you've taken the color out of the picture, or so on and so on. And DOPs, of course, they love this. They put on the grain, they put on anamorphic lenses, they do everything like this to distort reality, to make it very personal to the characters. And usually when you create a show, your look will be somewhere between the two. Yeah? So there are some very extreme looks, which are right at that end, and there are some that are not. I would say Queen's Gambit is not the most extreme. Not at all. Something else happens there. It tells the audience what world they're going to watch, and it also creates kind of an expectation. So the world of The Witcher, if you have not seen The Witcher, the promise of this world, the promise of this story to the audience is a different promise than these other two titles. Yeah? Would you say that if you watch The Witcher, you expect it to look like this? Yeah? What happens if it doesn't look like that? You're disappointed. Yeah? This is what happens to me. If I watch something and it looks like it's going to look amazing, but then when you watch it, you're like, this doesn't look so good, then I'm getting very disappointed. So the looks create an identity for the show, and they create an expectation. The expectation is the kind of emotional journey you will have. So you're in the mood to watch something, you want this emotional journey. In The Witcher, it's going to be about death, it's going to be about brutality, magic, fantasy, and so on. Quite different from Dubai Bling. Maybe you're in the mood for that. Yeah? You want to see a different story. So the images, they create this kind of expectation. Here's another example from Turkey, Hot Skull. The platform actually tells you, it says this show is gritty. Does it look gritty? Doesn't look gritty to you. That's interesting. Okay, for me that's a gritty looking show. But different people see different things, that's all right. So the look of the show, it sets an expectation, and usually the audience expects this to be delivered. Yeah? When you build a show, this is just something to think about. Yeah? It's like, how will your look be communicated? How will it be described? So, how to make the most of this potential? Where to concentrate your efforts? Can you just achieve amazing results in post-production? I think some of you already know that it won't work like this. Here's a familiar scenario. Here's the colorist. She gets the camera files, and they tell us, we want it to look like The Witcher meets Sicario. If there's any other colorists in this room, they would know that this is a very familiar scenario. And you know that we will never achieve this. It is just not possible. Even with a limitless VFX budget, you will not get there. What's happening here is you're having a case where someone has not really decided how it should look, and then they're thinking about shows that they liked, and they liked the emotions that they got from those shows, like Squid Game or from Amelie, and then they say at the end, we want to create that. But this will never work out, right? It just will not. Basically what happens is my job becomes about just getting them prepared for disappointment. Yeah, sad to say. So here we go, just looking at the time. Yeah, we're okay. So we're going to go through 6 key moments to foster better visuals, all the way from development, all the way to post-production. So these are more like ideas and so on, from having seen a lot of titles go through the production pipeline at Netflix, a lot of mysteries about why this show looks amazing and this show doesn't look amazing. These mysteries were revealed. And so this is what I share with you today in this talk. It's just, sometimes people ask, why does this show look amazing? This show doesn't. They had this budget. They had this one. How can it be like this? And this maybe will answer these kind of questions. Yeah? So just so you have an idea of what's coming, here's the spoiler. What are the 6 key moments? We're going to go through them. There's going to be visual references and moods, which will be familiar for some of you here. We're going to look at lookbooks. I don't know if anyone has seen those. And I've got some examples with me. We're going to look at a look development test. It's not just a camera test. It's a bit more than this. Yeah? You start to build the world. Then we're going to look at a very exciting moment. It's after the first week of dailies. I'm sure not everyone in the room knows what dailies are, but dailies are basically when they're shooting a project, every day you get the raw material, so the unprocessed material. Often the producers, they like to watch it on the iPad. Her performance is not so good. That's what dailies are, right? And dailies are giving you already an idea of the direction the show's going in. Then we'll look at this. Sometimes the names, they have different names. Here it's called the final color reel. This is something that we do on almost all Netflix originals, I would say, but not always. Not always. And the last one is near the end of episode 1 grading, color grading, if you're doing episodic. Yeah, so there's a spoiler, that's what's coming up. So the first moment comes if you think about Queen's Gambit and the log line for Queen's Gambit. So when a project is beginning development, I have to correct this one, discussions around the visuals should also begin. Here we've got, it's not real of course, here we've got a reply from a writer-director to a producer, and the producer has asked the director, it's an amazing producer, asked the director and the writer, do you have any ideas what it should look like? Yeah? Do you have any feelings for a possible aesthetic? The writer-director says, now you mention it, I'd always imagined some sort of struggle between broken nostalgia and angelic glamour, whatever that means. We'll think about it more before we meet. You might think, wow, it's very strange to say things like this, but it is always like this, yeah? Because it's an emotion. The writer has an emotion that they cannot articulate, but they want to share it with an audience. It's very common that the audience, people in the audience say, I want to tell a story about my village or where I come from or something like this. I want to get that story out. And what's really happening there is they want to communicate that emotion to a wider audience. It's very difficult to do it. But when you do it, and a lot of people can feel that same emotion, there's enormous power in this. But this is how it often starts. It often starts in a very fuzzy way. So here's actually the look reference, yeah, we're going to go with. Struggle between broken nostalgia and angelic glamour. So no one here knows what that looks like. I don't know what that looks like either. But we're going to develop this. A good question to ask at this moment here, very early on, is the project's vision keeper clearly defined? So a vision keeper is not a role. Yeah, you can't have a job being a vision keeper. It's more of a responsibility. So sometimes it's called a vision keeper, sometimes it's a vision holder. So what that is that's the person who has the final say on the world and the show that's being built. Usually it's the director, but not always. In some regions you have showrunners, in other regions you don't. Yeah? It could be, for example, called a creative producer. Often it's not really discussed who has this final responsibility, but often it comes at the end, which is when it's not so good. Yeah? Suddenly you thought it was this vision holder, but another vision holder emerges from the background. This is why it's very good to discuss this early on, yeah? To avoid confusion later. So another key moment, perhaps it's the most key moment, I don't know, is the team that you build to produce the show. Yeah. So I've written here a team that can share ideas at eye level. It's a very polite way of saying they're not blocked by ego. Yeah, that's the honest truth. This is a really powerful thing. And I would say also, it's really good to build a team that could work together again. Maybe they haven't worked together before, but they could work together again. So sometimes you have people who are like, I want to have this editor from New York. They're always in a different time zone, but she's amazing, and so on and so on. Yeah, you can do it. But if it's so difficult to get people together to do a production, you miss out. You may gain some amazing things, like some amazing skills, but you miss out on the possibility to build a team that will work together again and again, which is a really, really powerful thing, as you'll see. So here's this quote from Spielberg. Where does the unique look of each of my films come from? So it comes from the heads of department speaking to each other on a daily basis. Yeah? It's probably the most influential reason why some projects look better than others. In the case of this still, it's the product of all of those people talking with each other on a daily basis. Let's look at the teams topic for a minute. Yeah. Here's a team. Yeah, it's very familiar to me. I was mainly working in Germany, I have to say. So I know this experience here, but I know that it exists in other parts of the world as well. So here you have a team of top talent. They're all amazing. Yeah. But their mind is like, I was hired to do my thing. I'm very good at it. They got me to do this. I'm very good at doing that. I'm just going to do my thing on this project. Yeah. This is the DOP up there. Yeah. It's a production designer here, the director, and so on. But it's a very isolated collaboration, or you could say siloed, for example. Here's another alternative. Yeah, it's a strong collaboration. Yeah, it's more like the Spielberg example. So here, their approach is, part of their role is to enhance the other person's work. Yeah. This is how many of the top production designers and DOPs are working. If you watch like a Christopher Nolan film or something like this, you're going to see examples of this as well. Yeah, that they give ideas to each other. So we're going to catch up with these two groups later on the production, but for now we're going to carry on. So now we'll reach pre-production, and we need to create some references for the kind of look that we want to create for this show. And we're going to discuss them as a team. So here was our reference that we had, the broken nostalgia and the angelic glamour. And all of us here, I would say, are a bit like this. What does it look like? I don't know. Yeah? So you have to figure it out, and this takes time. And it's really the DOP, the director of photography or cinematographer, are the ones who lead this visualization process. They are the most skilled in this language of rhythm, of framing, of scale, all of the things that we saw in the forest with the wolf. They're the most skilled at that. They're like the composers of this. So they're key to this. And I just mentioned this because sometimes people bring the DOP like 2 weeks before shooting. It happens, but this also has an effect. So what's possible? So I thought I'd just show you some examples of how a look can be developed early on. So here's some examples from actual materials from the Queen's Gambit. They did various work on developing the colors. So they started with images like this. So what you should see here is you should see colors and textures. It's a collage, right? The character will move between this world and this world. Often characters move from one extreme to another. He's in the Matrix, he's not in the Matrix. He's in the Squid Game, he's not in the Squid Game. So here, when I show you this, you will probably get a reaction, it's old, it's sensitive, classic. Yeah? This is the world that it communicates to you. It's fragile, it's gentle. Yeah? It's also boring maybe, quiet, and so on. When she goes to Las Vegas, it's different. Yeah? It's vibrant. It's very bold. Yeah? Very exciting. What is it? Sorry? Yeah. So then what they do is they take historical pictures from the time. So the movie or the series is set in the 50s and 60s. They take historical pictures from the time and they paint on those colors. Yeah. This is the thing. And then after a while here, okay, I have to tell you, not every show has this kind of work. They have storyboards. The storyboards start to look a lot like the show, if you've seen it. Yeah, it starts to look very much like the final images. again, you see this contrast of the colors. This is the world that she comes from, in the orphanage, and this is the world she goes to when she wants to become the greatest chess player in the world. You know? You could, in a way, distill the colors of Queen's Gambit down to these two colors. So just when you had this emotional response to the red and to the blue, when you combine colors together, you get a different, more complex reaction. So if you take historical pictures from the time, where the story is set, and you paint them with the color, you start to create the emotional world. So here was the reference, and after a lot of time, this is the final result. So this is from beginning of episode 1. When she's a young girl, she thinks her mother will kill herself. Later the mother does. You notice the colors there? It's not a nice place to be in the memory. It's this slightly thick green. As you go through the story, it develops and it becomes richer. So we started here. You could say maybe this is broken nostalgia. And this is more the glamour. And it gets more glamorous. So when you make moods and references, these also need to be shared, not just made. Sometimes people make them, but they don't share them. And you'll see what happens when people do that, for example. What else can help us with the visual development in pre-production? Here's an example of a lookbook, and I actually have them with me today, 2 of them. Anyone seen lookbooks before? Yes? Someone has? Yeah? Good. Seen physical ones? Physical ones are rare. Here's an example of a physical one. But so that you can see it, I'll just show you the actual pictures of the book. So these are made as the collaboration in pre-production between the company that does the color grading vendor, the colorist, the cinematographer, and the director. In one of the books, it's described the different characters will have different palettes. So this really looks so saturated today. Oh, hang on a second. It's quite strong. That's better. Character has different palettes, for example, and these are just pictures that have been taken from Shot Deck, which is an amazing website where you can look at still images from many series or feature films. Sometimes instead of giving the characters certain palettes, you can give the world in which they live. So often it's like the home world, for example, or the world of the club. People choose colors based on the environment. So having these kind of visual references and sharing them, these become really helpful in keeping the look on track, because when you go into production, usually it's a bit chaotic, and people can forget what was the direction we were going in. But if you have like something like this on set, it's like, does it match? Are we building the world that we said we would? Then we come to this stage, which is the look development test, which is we're getting closer to production. I know you're thinking, wow, Edmund, you're going to do production and post-production. Trust me, production and post-production is very short. It's all pre-production. So we're going to go into shooting. We're going to do a look development test. And before we do this, it's important to just understand briefly where a look really comes from. Yeah, but you know this from your own life. I'm sure that all of you here actually have done this yourself. So you build a certain look using two things. It's really like cutting an apple. Yeah. On the one side, it's the elements captured by the camera. So it's the production design, costume, the makeup, the lenses and the filters. And it's the cinematographer or the DOP who's largely responsible for this. And then there's what you do with it afterwards, which is image processing, basically. And if you've ever edited a picture on your phone, then you have done image processing. And that's this part, yeah? Picture processing. So this is where you create kind of a filter. And here we've done like a Witcher look, you know, it's cold, it's desaturated. Desaturation is kind of making it more like death, yeah, because color is more like life. And you can save that filter and you can use this on set. So it means that on set, everyone can look through the camera and they can see the world of The Witcher with this look. And then they can choose colors and costumes or apples based on seeing it through this filter. And the colorist is largely responsible for this under guidance from the DOP. So it's a very quick look at this. But basically to build the look, you need these values. You need to capture the values like the apple in order to build the look. So what sort of setups are good to capture for this kind of test? They will not surprise you, yeah? The main cast in makeup and costume, good approximation of the final art direction, exteriors as well as interiors, because what often happens is people just create the test at the rental, you know, where the cameras are. I've seen millions of tests, it's just a guy at the rental holding a board. You don't know what this show will look like. You don't know what that world will look like. And then you have examples of different time frames, like you saw in the Queen's Gambit. So the past versus the present and so on, these are often given different looks. And then the last one is really, I would say, scenes at the extreme ends of the palette. So for example, they open a magic box, it should be very magical, or it's a dragon, should be very fiery, or it's a plane crash. Because usually if you can render those scenes the way you want them to be, the extremes, then everything in the middle is easy. But what people tend to do is they tend to test the easy part in the middle, and then later they struggle with the extremes. Yeah? The plane crash just doesn't look very good. You might say, oh my goodness, this sounds so expensive, Edmund, so much work. Here we're going to look at an example from a German show that I supported, Transatlantic. We're going to have a look at their test. So here I'm going to play it. Here you have the main cast. They're in makeup. They're in costume. They're in the location. Yeah, here you have a different look, because it's in the past. So this is the actual camera test for this show. And here you have exteriors. Yeah. So if you watch Transatlantic on Netflix, you'll see that it looks very similar to this. This was the test. So they made this. I wouldn't say it's particularly expensive. They made this test, and everybody gets an idea of how the world will look like of Transatlantic. And then in the color grading at the end, they just add more value, yeah, to make the visuals a bit more rewarding. So this is an example of a really great test. So such a test provides great proof of concept. There's always learnings from these tests, things that people didn't expect, and it's a big benefit to the creative team. So keeping an eye on the time. Another key moment is really when it comes to looking at the test, you ask yourself with the test, does it match what we agreed when we did the moods? Sometimes it doesn't match. So you want to always refer back to what you were creating. Yeah? So great looks are built kind of forwards, what we want to do, and then also looking back, the direction that we wanted to go in. So here we actually get to photography, right? Principle of photography has started. And here comes this other key moment, when the first week of the dailies comes in. So this is a moment to really evaluate, do the dailies look like the look that we created before we started shooting? Yeah, I can't tell you what happens when people don't think about this. What happens is something called, here's a good example here. So this is the look that was agreed for the Empress, right? And now we're going to look at the dailies that there were. Okay, it's not real, I made it up, but you're going to get the idea. So the dailies look like this, let's say. Yeah. Interestingly, if I show it the other way around, it also works a different way. But anyway, what do you think the danger is of working with these dailies and not correcting them to look like these? So plain. Yeah, that's true. It doesn't have the life of this one. Yeah? Yeah, you can just shout out if you've had this experience. Usually people from post-production have had this experience and they're traumatized and they want to shout out, oh, I know what happens. Yeah? So are these quality dailies? Not really. What happens when people edit with dailies that don't look like the final look is this syndrome. It's called bad dailies love. Bad dailies love, or bad dailies syndrome, is when people get used to the wrong look. You know? It's like you've seen a photo of your childhood all your life. If I come and change this picture, you'll be like, I don't like it. I liked how it was before. What happens to directors, typically directors, is they get used to the wrong look. Yeah, they believe this is how it should look. So they get used to the one on the right, and then you cannot change their mind when it comes to doing the final color. They've adapted to this. Yeah. So there's only 2 key moments left, and I'll just go through this very quickly. But I can't tell you enough. If the dailies don't look like what we agreed, pick up the phone. This is the way to have the biggest impact on the look, really. So there's 2 key moments left. One is the final look reel. And I think actually I will skip this, but it is basically a test grading before the final grading. So you just take scenes from the final episode when it's conformed, and you pre-grade them in a simple way, and then you share them with everyone. You can think of it a bit like this, like a look finalization, because usually the project has changed, yeah? And that's really the last chance to perfect the direction of the grade before the grading really starts. Because once it starts, as a colorist, I'm going to burn through 72,000 pictures, yeah? Or 173,000 or so on. So you want to be sure about the direction you're going in before you go there, yeah? Or a series. The last key opportunity was after episode 1, but I'm actually going to skip this as I see that I am running out of time. But if you want to hear about that one, you could just come and ask me. So, do you remember these guys? Yeah? So I'm just going to very quickly go through their journey. So I've got this graph, don't worry, it's nothing mathematical. It's about creative engagement. So, I go quite fast, but just follow me. Up on the left is the amount of creative engagement. It's meetings, coffees, interactions, talks, and across the bottom is time. Is it clear? Yeah? So let's see what they do. So here they have the first look and feel conversations, but they're not really engaged. There's just the director and the DOP thinking about it. They characterize the looks, yeah? So they kind of know what they want to do, but they kind of keep it very small group. Yeah? Engagement is low. They do the camera test, but people are not so sure whether it's good because they don't really know what it should look like. Yeah? Then we're going to get to the dailies. What do you think is going to happen when the dailies come in? When no one's really sure how this show should look? Yeah? They're just going along like this. We'll figure it out as we go. Many filmmakers work like this. Yeah? We'll figure it out as we go. How does it feel to work on a project like this? Yeah? It feels a bit like this. You've got a director and a DOP. They're like, we're driving the look. Yeah? Yeah? It rings a bell? Yeah. And everyone else is just running along. There is communication, but it's not really collaborative. Yeah? On a story like this, you will never get an amazing result. It is just like this. Figure it out as we go. Then the dailies come in. Yeah? No one's really sure how it should look. Can anyone guess how this graph is going to go? Right. I think someone here has had this experience. Right. So suddenly, it's time for this look finalization, which gets shared typically with the studio. So the studio has a look at it. This wasn't the angelic glamour we were thinking about. And the DOP is really upset because the DOP was like, I had my vision, I had my plan, knew what I was going to do. Yeah, I see the time. And now he's upset. But he didn't communicate it. And then we have the final stage, final color review. What happens here? Everyone is interested in the story. Studio is disappointed. Yeah, colorist is going to need a lot of money to try to change the pictures, you know. And what about the DOP? He doesn't want to work with these guys ever again. And that's always the saddest thing. And a blame game starts, yeah. So what happens at the end of this journey, if you have ever experienced this, is creative disappointment, wasted potential, the story wasn't communicated. And so very quickly, it'll take me 1 minute, 2 minutes, I'll just do the last one, which is the strong collaboration. So here they are, yeah, they're all together, production designer, DOP, colorist, they're all there. A lot of coffees, a lot of conversation, they're all locked in the warehouse together. They don't hide from the lady from the studio. They ask her, what does she think about it? Is this the world that you want to create? They're all aligned. So they move forward, they characterize the looks, and everyone is like, we're on a good way. We're on a good way. And I usually ask, has anyone experienced this? And it's like, yeah, one time in my life. It sometimes happens. Then there's the look development test. It's going along. And how do you think this story is going to go? Yeah, steady. It's going to go downwards. Yeah. Then we get the first week of dailies. Do you think anyone's going to be shocked by these dailies? No. Because it's really clear to everyone, this is how the picture should look. Everyone's happy with the dailies. Yeah. Then it comes to look finalization. Again, everyone is on the same page. Yeah. Studio loves it. The creatives who are making it, they love it. And then you can basically leave the DOP and the colorist alone to finish the story. For a colorist, it's a dream. I don't have to listen to all those opinions in the room. I can just do my work. Yeah. So by the final stage, and this does happen sometimes, you have very little engagement from people. You're just left with the colorist and the DOP. The lady from the studio is happy, and the creatives are happy. So the final result is what the audience wants. That show was so good, I watched it all. Oh my goodness, it looked amazing. Yeah, it's this added value. Netflix would say it in a very long language, which I won't mention there. And your two final takeaways are to create really rewarding visuals, you need really rewarding collaborations. There's no technology, there's nothing that can get around this. It's an absolute. There's not many absolutes in filmmaking, but this is one. It can only be done with humans working together. And the other one is, you need a team that can elevate each other's work. Yeah? I'm afraid there's no shortcuts to this, of course. All right. Thank you very much. Good.
Thank you so much. ستبدأ الآن جلسة الأستاذ عبد اللطيف الصايغ.